Hi, everyone, and welcome to Professionals Unplugged. Thank you for joining me for another candid conversation about work. I'm Inga Hepton, your host and owner of Medea International. So, I'm an executive coach, and my mission is to elevate people's impact and success, especially by helping leaders improve their executive presence. And with me today, I have Susan and Steven Eklin. Both are founders of Vision Front Coaching, a company that mentors and coaches people on how to achieve extraordinary results in both their lives, professionally as well as personally. Susan spent the last 25 years in the healthcare system as a director of emergency services and left to have a larger impact, both in her own life as well as in her community. And Stephen served as a president and COO of a regional office solution company. He's an award-winning management leader who uses his 35 plus years of experience and his passion for leadership to make a positive difference in people's lives. And I have Bill Haase. After 20 years in the trading pits of Chicago and 18 years on Main Street as an advisor, Bill now teaches financial literacy. He's coming off a radio show after 4 years and is now creating a new podcast coming out this fall with iHeartMedia. The show, as well as its public speaking title, is called Intent. Do you live your life with intent or by default? So, thank you all for being here. And today's topic is leading yourself so that you can lead others successfully. I mean, it's a little bit of a wide, wide topic, but I do want to throw it to the audience and not taking up too much time. Bill, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I love the topic, and thank you for having me, Inga. Leadership, it's a tough role. Nobody teaches it, right? It's hard to find. It's hard to teach and learn, especially if you're at the top. If you're at the top, you're supposed to have all the answers, right? You're not supposed to ask questions. You're not supposed to need to learn anything anymore. You're supposed to know everything. But it's a challenge, and that's kind of part of what I go out and talk about. Is are you living your life with intent? As a business owner, you do. You absolutely live your life with intent, but there are aspects of your life that you live with through default, and those are the devils and the demons that we have to deal with. And in being a leader, you need to have intent.
Yeah, and I could jump in on that. A leader, right? If we didn't have a good mentor, if we didn't have a good coach or a good role model before we aspired to that, we're lost and we're trying to
Mhm.
figure out our way. And sometimes that comes with really poor results. And you're right, we have to live with intent. We either design our lives or it goes by default. The choice is really ours. But if we happen to live another 365 days, the year's going to pass. Are we going to design it or is it just going to go by day to day with the same result?
Yeah, and having been a leader myself, and thank you, Inga, for the opportunity to talk. A leader needs to inspire people, but a leader needs to be inspired. You have to be able
Mhm.
to walk into a room and command respect, but you also have to be able to draw out of people the best of them. Empowering people is so important, and building the right culture is a must. I've taken over several offices in my career, and when I did, they were depressed offices, and the first thing that had to be addressed was culture. Culture was
Mm.
either toxic or even non existent. And once you rebuild the culture and you instill in people an empowerment and a belief in them, you can move mountains, and leadership can then take off, and your team will follow suit.
Yeah, I agree. And all very good points, right? Because obviously part of having the intention to be a good leader, right? You also need to reflect on your own. And for me, that is really the sweet spot between being a good leader, hence leading others successfully, creating that environment where they can flourish, right? Where they, like you said, where they feel empowered, where they feel heard. That also means that you need to be quite intentional about your own development, about your own self awareness. So, for me, the most crucial components are really the development of the self awareness as well as the emotional intelligence, right? Because if you can't manage your own emotion, what kind of leader will you be? Because if
Hmm.
you know, we're all really great people when everything is great in our lives, but usually the really bad characteristic traits, they show up if, yeah, when things don't go well, when there's a lot of pressure, when there's a lot of self-doubt, etc. And then it can happen that people lash out.
Well, if I
Yeah, I
may
think
jump in, in my time, I had the ability to work with every walk of life leader, from the great mentors and people that I look up to this day, to people that I probably learned the most from, which were the ones that were toxic leaders or led by fear or thought they were motivating through fear. And part of your life is if your life is chaos, your personal life is chaos, that's going to translate into your leadership style. There's really a hard way to separate that and to be able to keep the two apart. And one
Yeah.
of the biggest misnomers in business is people think because somebody was an excellent employee at a particular job, that'll make them a great leader. That's not necessarily true.
if I could add on, Inga, you talk about people leading and leading really by example. There's always a saying, they can you walk it? Can you talk the talk, but do you walk the walk? And we've all heard that.
Mm.
And the best time to see your leader, how they handle themselves, is really like in a time of stress, right? How are they
Yeah.
acting? Is the truth coming out? It's symbolized a lot of times by an orange. When you squeeze an orange, the only thing that come out of it is orange juice. So when you squeeze your leader, the truth of their personality, their style, their character is going to come out. And people pick up on fakes right away. You have to be genuine and you have to care. Your employees and those you serve are your greatest asset. And as leaders, we all have to remember that. We are there to serve them and help them rise, not the other way around.
I love the analogy with the orange. I might steal that from you.
Go ahead, it's not
Yeah, I
mine.
think, and I think Steve makes a good point. Like I never responded well to a tough type of leader. Like the old school leaders, which are clashing with the new generations that don't answer well to that at all. And we still have the dinosaurs out there running businesses, with an iron fist, as we call it, and it's not working well. But to be a leader, you need to be conscious of the culture and the things that are going on around you, and and that takes effort. It doesn't just come to you. But also, I think being a good leader involves knowing when you need help. We No one knows everything. Everybody needs help. There's nothing you can do in this world without the help of another person, at least one other person.
I totally agree, Bill. I just add one thing. A leader does know that. A leader knows their weaknesses. And the strongest leaders surround themselves with a team, right, that picks up on those weaknesses and supports them. That's a true leader.
Another piece to that is asking questions. I was always peppering my team with questions. Why are you doing it the way you do it? What are the results you're getting? How are you finding it to work? Where are you winning? Where are you losing and falling back? And the more you probe with questions, the more insight you get from your people. But what I found in my travels is they respected that. They respected the fact that I was open, I was honest, I asked questions, I was wanting to learn. But by doing so, I was better suited as a manager leader to support them and take away the barriers that held them back from doing their jobs.
Just to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Unfortunately, very few organizations teach that, in particular when people get promoted, when they come up the ranks. I think, Susan, you said that earlier. People usually get promoted in the job, and because they're technically skilled or they're really good at what they're doing right now, and so they move up the ladder. And obviously caring about the people is one thing, but I wonder if we have somebody who is been promoted and is not really a great leader as the four of us would want it and kind of define it, what could somebody do in order to really help them on that journey? And it's not just about having a conversation about, well, how do you lead others well, but what changes could we help them discover when it comes to themselves and the way they hold themselves, the way they lead themselves, because we all seem to agree that this is kind of the foundation of being able to lead others.
Well, I believe it's partly starts with a work-life balance. You've got to have harmony at home, and you've got to have ample time for your family to also dedicate that to your job. So many people that are wanting to move up in a company think that they're going to self promote themselves by spending more and more time in the office, that the senior executives are going to notice that and say that's someone we want to promote. But at what sacrifice? And the children or the family are the ones that suffer from it. And I think that most people need to understand there's a balance between work and between your home life so that you have fair and equitable practices going both ways. And it doesn't create a toxic environment in any side of the coin.
Yeah, I
I
believe.
have a personal hard time with that life work balance. I think it's just life and balancing it. If you have it, if work is a separate whole world to you and you're balancing two different aspects to your life, you might be in the wrong job. If you love what you're doing and like you love your family, it can flow together. Yeah, I'm not a corporate person. I've never been able to handle the corporate world very well. I only spent 4 years in that life, and one of the things I didn't like was that there was one ladder, and everybody's on it, and everybody's trying to climb that ladder, and they're fighting each other, and that's not teamwork. That's not creating an environment that allows, I think, some people to grow. Now, obviously, we have a lot of employees that basically just want to show up, tell me what I'm supposed to do. I'll get it done. I collect my paycheck. I go home. And then there's more of the leadership type that live with intent, saying, I'm going to figure out ways to do this better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to figure out ways to be more efficient. And those are the ones actually that, turn into leadership. If you're bringing up folks who were just there for a paycheck and putting them into leadership roles, it's probably not going to go over very well.
No, and I would say, Inga, if you have someone in a new leadership role and they're struggling, the first thing that we teach is to learn more about themselves, right? You have to understand yourself before you can understand those you lead. And it's so important to go deep and understand why they're doing what they want to do. Is this truly what they want to do? Is this truly what they have a passion for? Right? As Bill said, if they don't have a passion, if they're just coming to punch the time card, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And the more they know about themselves, they can see how they can lead other people and they can see how they can serve. So I go deep on the person themselves and how to make them a better person, because as they start to understand themselves and become a better person, they'll be able to lead better. So it all starts with them, not the role they're in.
And if I may jump in real quick, it's all self image. And what's the person's self image of themselves? What is that inner self talk? What are they saying to themselves that's either creating them to be successful or they're holding themselves back? And when we work with people, that's one of the first areas we talk about is your self image. What is that inner self talk that you're having with yourself? You don't talk to anybody in the world more than you talk to yourself. There's not even a close second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Because to me, if you're fighting demons, something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you really are passionate about what you're doing, whether it's through a purpose or a calling, demons they're not there. But
Yeah.
it's conscious effort, right? You have to make time to be consciously aware of the environment of where the folks and what's going on. There's always talk around the water cooler that the boss never hears, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where everybody lets their hair down a little bit, let's say. But
And it takes a confident leader to actually be okay with the water cooler conversations about him or her and, be absolutely fine with it. Or even one step further, inviting those critical comments actually in and dealing with it and making sure that they actually go on in the journey of self-reflection, self-development. I agree. The leadership journey starts with the person, him or herself. So I think that's really where it starts. It's by working on yourself, like you said, the entire self discovery thing. Why am I doing this? Why on earth do I want to be a leader? What's driving it? What's my intention of being a leader? What kind of leader do I really want to be? What's the leader, the type of leader the organization needs me to be? Where do I might disagree and why? And of course, right, it's a lifelong journey. It's not something we think, oh, right, we've got a training course or we got a 6 months coaching and mentoring under our belt. And there you go. I've got it now. Never have to, never have to reflect it again. I've seen.
do we look at leaders as superhuman? They're supposed to be better than everybody else, or because leaders are like anybody else. We get distracted, we get off track. We sometimes forget the purpose or the passion of why we're there. We get tasked with doing things that we don't like to do. How many leaders like to look at their books? And Steve, you're a COO. You know how important it is to understand your books and your financials. But most business folks, especially entrepreneurs, don't like that aspect. That's something they kind of try to avoid. And there may be other things that you try to avoid because you're not good at it, you're not aware of it, don't understand it, and you can get distracted with these things and lose track for a little bit of time. And it takes somebody outside of yourself to bring you back in.
So, what tips would you give to somebody if somebody has or is in a leadership role, no matter how long, and they're aware of, or at least they have a little bit of self awareness? Well, I can probably be a better leader. What are some easy things they can do basically straight away, which will help them become a better leader?
Well, here's what I did as I took over different organizations. The first thing I did was when I pulled my leaders together, I would tell them, if you went to any company in the world and polled the employees and asked them what is the number one thing that is lacking in your organization, undoubtedly the number one thing is communication. We never hear, we never know, we're always finding out after the fact. And I used to tell my leaders, I want you to communicate, communicate, communicate. And when you think you've communicated, over communicate. Because when you open up the channels of discussion, people are invited in, questions are asked, things start to happen. But when you're closed, when things are happening, that's what generates that water cooler talk. They're sitting around wondering, why did this happen and we weren't aware of it? What are they hiding? What is going on? What's coming next? You have to have great communication to be a great leader.
The first thing you can do is grow yourself and realize, like we've been talking about, you don't know it all. You've always been led by someone, or you're always following someone, be it in the role or in life. And to just expand your knowledge and know that always everyone knows they can be a better person, they can be a better leader. What can I do to make myself better? And therefore, it kind of works like a pond being thrown, or a rock being thrown into a pond. The ripples just go out. You
Hmm.
cannot help but be a better leader when you start improving yourself.
It sounds like asking yourself one big question in terms of what you just said, Susan. How can I be a better leader? What am I missing? Where are my gaps? Where do I stand? What's my baseline? Kind of have that as a broad question in order to then start drilling down at the same time, communicating with others, inviting comments, inviting feedback, and communicate with more transparency and clarity. Is that a good summary in terms of things one can do relatively quickly in order to improve?
Yes, you've got to be honest with yourself, though, and you have to accept that criticism because it's going to come. Ask your closest confidants or those that you work with that will be honest with you,
Yeah.
and then be open and then decide to change or hopefully to leave the position.
Yeah.
That's hard, I mean, I recently had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine, and he looked at me and he said, "Do you want me to be honest?" I said, "Please, somebody be honest with me, because it's otherwise, how am I going to learn?" Um,
Yeah.
Honesty and how someone else sees you in your role. But like what you said, Inga, that's a choice. Leaders have a choice. Do
Yeah.
do they? And Susan, I think you brought this up earlier too. But it's if you want to be a good leader, you have to choose to ask these questions, right, and to listen to the answers. Many leaders don't do that.
Yeah.
I can think of several, but
It takes a lot of guts and confidence, though, in particular if you've done it for quite some time one way and there's a certain culture in an organization. It might be really hard to all of a sudden say, hang on a minute, I'm going to invite some feedback here and I'm going to ask some questions and I'm reflecting more on the things I do and say and how I behave and think.
it's
So it
more important
requires
now
a
than
lot of
ever.
confidence.
It's more important now than ever. I mean, with look, we don't make 20 and 30-year plans anymore. Life is changing so rapidly. The amount of information coming at us doubles. I'm reading every 18 months.
Mm.
That's a crazy amount of information in a short period of time. So we really need to be conscious and make an effort to stay on top of things and to make sure you're doing, making the right decisions for the right reasons.
Yeah, we have an opportunity every day, an opportunity to make a difference. And I've always felt the true mark of a leader is a leader that develops other leaders. There's nothing worse than when a leader is away, there's a void and there's a drop off and things don't get done. But a leader that develops other leaders so they can step into that void and be prepared for that future. As Bill said, as things are happening rapidly, companies are changing. They're following the demands of the time. And if there's a demand for additional leaders or more leaders or things are expanding, a leader's job is to have people ready to step into that area so that that company doesn't suffer because no one is ready.
Yeah, very true. And if you haven't changed leadership styles, like Bill said, the technology and things are changing every 18 months. If you've been doing the same thing for 5 years, it's
Hmm.
time for some reflection. Things need to be changed. The new generations, they do not have the same thought processes and thoughts about work than the baby boomers did or Generation Y. Everything is changing and different. So the best thing you can do is stay abreast and keep learning.
Yeah. And embrace the change.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'd love the conversation. And I think obviously there's so many more things we can probably say about leading yourselves and the importance of that in order to really lead others successfully. But I think we've have some good nuggets in there, and also some tips what one can do in order to improve themselves. But from what I'm hearing, we all agree it is so crucial to have the self-reflection, the self-awareness, embracing change and in work and in life and in general, because my husband has a nice saying. He said, the only constant in life is change. And I couldn't agree more. And the more we embrace it and get comfortable with it, the more we can actually learn and grow and also serve others whilst doing that. So, again, thank you so much. Thank you for listening to Professionals Unplugged. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And if you'd like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. And if you'd like to hear even more, check out my website, www.medeaintl.com, for insights, connecting, and coaching. Until then, unplug and look after yourself.